Come on now. You know, this song was a reminder for me growing up that I needed to come before God with a contrite heart. And this work of reparations is work of contrition for all of us. And so our panelists, Mary Beth, Reverend Matthew, Reverend Hall, come on forward, have a seat, and we're going to do our thing. All right, we got two, Mary Beth, ahora sí.
Hi everybody, I'm Hannah Hafter. I'm in the organizing team with Reverend Edwin Johnson at Episcopal City Mission, and I will be facilitating this panel, which I see in our agenda is called Clergy and Local Community Leaders. And I think it's important that we say it's clergy and local community leaders of white Episcopal congregations, right? We were talking about naming whiteness and the importance of doing that with Reverend Kelly Brown Douglas. And so we're talking about this in the context of congregations that aren't necessarily entirely white. They may have members and people who are very involved who are not white, but that they were born out of whiteness and they carry the legacy of whiteness in them. And so if naming whiteness feels uncomfortable, if it brings something up, if you're hearing things today that are stirring something inside of you, if you're a person who has been made into whiteness, into being white by the system that we're in, that's great, because that is the work, right? Like, we haven't had enough conversations about race as a white community, and we need to build the muscle to be able to have these conversations, and part of that is tending to what comes up in us when we talk about whiteness, when we talk about white supremacy culture, when these words, raise things inside of us. And so I encourage all the white folks in the room to, pay attention to yourselves and your body and what's coming up and what needs tending to as we continue these conversations about reparations. Testing. Yes, and so, wasn't there one that was a little one that people were passing that seemed to work better? All right. I apologize in advance for the sound issues that may occur on this panel, but I'm excited to be here with the Reverend Hall Kirkham from St. Michael's Milton, the Reverend Matthew Caldwell from Old North Church, and Mary Beth Clack, who is a lay leader with Emmanuel Church in Boston. And these are parishes at different stages of their own process in reparations. This isn't an example of all the things going on throughout the state with reparations. It's just some models of things that are happening at different stages. And this will follow into our breakout groups, which follow the tracks of planting the seeds, sprouting towards action, growing commitment, and ripe for reparations. And so, thank you for being here, and I wanted to start with the question, what has your community done around reparations, and what internal work have you needed to do as a community to begin the work of reparations?
I guess I'm going first. Well, my church is the oldest, so I guess I can go first. So I'm Matthew Cadwell. I serve as vicar of the Old North Church. So I want to begin by saying I feel, and sometimes people say we've done a lot at Old North. I feel completely inadequate. So I just want to offer that, and I feel like we're on a lifetime process that's not easily fulfilled, right? So Old North, several ways I've thought about introducing this, but some of you, if any of you have been to Old North, maybe you've out of town guests and you've come to Old North as a tourist or whatever. There used to be an exhibit, not in the church, but in an adjacent building called Captain Jackson's Chocolate Shop. And it was a fantastic exhibit. Actually, I had been there. It was before my time as vicar. I came in 2020. But before then, I had people visiting from out of town, and we'd visit Old North, as a Boston site. The chocolate shop was fantastic. It came to light that the name Captain Jackson, he was a parishioner from the pre-revolutionary era, and he ran a chocolate shop, and he was captain of the ship. It came to light through some historic research outside of us that Captain Jackson was in fact a slave trader, a human trafficker, and he also got chocolate, and he did all the things that sort of ship captains at that time did, but including slave trading and human trafficking. And that led to profound work of study and examination for the history of the church. So they had known for a long time that enslavement touched Old North in various ways, but they never really grappled with it. And that sort of realization that this parishioner, whom they had held up sort of as a, just as a name, really, was a slave trader, changed the entire way the church tells its story around freedom and what freedom means, what it means to be an icon of freedom when enslavement was so embedded in the founding of the congregation. So that now, if you go to Old North and visit, there's educational materials all around the church, and there's also audio guides, and there's a lot now about the experience of people of color in the early ages of the church, to the extent that we can draw those details out. And some of them are really hidden. It's really hard. But to the extent that we can, we've tried to draw out so that when anyone visits, they have a different experience. And they're confronted with the paradox of being a symbol of freedom, and at the same time, this being a place that was so touched by enslavement. There's an old plaque in the church. When I give a tour of the church, I start with this plaque, which sort of details the founding of the congregation as the Second Church of England Church, and it sort of gives a list of who the benefactors were in the earliest days. Peter Faneuil is listed there, who we know was a massive slave trader. And then it lists, so it just lists a bunch of names, and then it says, and generous benefactors from Barbados and Antigua, right? And it's like, well, where did those generous benefactors get their wealth, right? And so when that plaque was put up, they didn't see it as ironic. Now I use that plaque as a way to how we tell our story, and so that's part of what we do. And as I say, it's inadequate, but we're moving toward a greater recognition of telling our story. I'm going to stop now because I'm talking too much.
So my name is Hannah Hafter. I'm the director at St. Michael's Church in Milton, and I was a seminarian at St. Michael's actually under Sam Rodman, and I remember asking Sam, what's the work that we've been doing to try and invite and open and loosen the congregation so that communities of color can feel part of, because there are communities of color in Milton, can feel part of the congregation. And Sam said, we've not done a very good job of that. I'm trying to do that. It's hard work, and we're trying to, because we've got Milton, we've got Mattapan, Quincy, and Randolph all around the town. As I came in as the rector, I'm finding it's really tough. And like my brother here, I feel inadequate. I feel like I don't have the skills. So what we've been doing, I'll just get to it. We have done Creating Common Good, which was a Trinity Institute program that my sister Joyce Caggiano and I led in conjunction with Church of the Holy Spirit, where we partnered with them during Lent and go back and forth between congregations each week. Sadly, I think, and I'll be honest, Holy Spirit folks would say, where are all the St. Michael's people? And I'd say, well, good question. They're busy. Inadequate response. We did a Lenten series recently called What is Truth, which was practices for leading to discussions of reparations, which was a very useful thing. We had a few more people doing that from St. Michael's. We didn't partner with anybody in that. That was after church on a Sunday, an adult ed forum that ran for a Lent series, the season of Lent. We've screened the Race, Power, and Illusion, a documentary by, I'm not remembering the organization, it's California Film Archive of some sort, which is an amazing teaching tool. So we've done these things, and we've benefited by being in the town of Milton that has an active, courageous Conversations Towards Racial Justice group, which I helped to start with several other folks, and we ran that for several years. When I got involved in the reparations work, or with the racial justice work in the diocese, I backed off of that work. But I guess what I'm trying to say is we've done little bits and pieces, none of which have really stuck. And I think what we probably need to do is form some kind of a social justice group. We have an outreach group. We have an education group. We've got a worship group. We need to have a commission, I think, the Social and Racial Justice Commission, to take ownership of this and to move it forward, because I'm clearly not able to do it. And the people that I've been working with clearly are having a hard time assembling themselves. So the internal work I think we're doing is trying to move from this idea of wading into an unfamiliar space or going to the margins in order to help, or in order to change, make a difference, and instead think about being made different by going to the margin. Dr. Brown Douglas said, God comes into history through the margins. God enters not through the Egyptians, but through the Hebrews. Jesus is there to let the oppressed go free. And if you get rid of those stories, or if you ignore those stories, you're missing them. So go to the margins to find God. And when you find God, you'll be transformed. So maybe that's the kind of language that I'd like to start working with my congregation.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Clack from Emmanuel Church, Boston. What we've been doing around reparations most recently, I am the convener of a racial justice working group. We're going into our third year. But prior to that, there were a number of programs over more than 10 years. Traces of the Trade was filmed. Remember that film was being shown quite often. We have a summer ed block called Chapel Camp, where we had a tour of the South End with Byron Rushing. And he took us on 2 Sundays through various parts of the South End. We learned a tremendous amount from that. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, we had a conference during COVID over Zoom about Polly Murray. St. Polly Murray was discerned out of Emmanuel Church, Boston. And so she's been a constant inspiration to us. And we had a conference, and to prepare for that, the committee learned a tremendous amount. I was a librarian for a long time, and lately I've been working in archives. So one of the things I did was went to the Schlesinger Library at Harvard, where you probably know that Polly Murray's papers are. And there's quite a bit there. I certainly couldn't cover all of it. But there's nothing that makes a librarian's heart beat faster than working in an archive and uncovering all of the wonderful materials, everything from her library card for New York Public Library to her sermons, and papers, and activist posters, all kinds of things related to her wonderful life. And I'm sure you know a little bit about her, but she's a constant source of inspiration for our parish. And we also recently have added a pulpit, a wooden pulpit carving of Polly Murray, along with some of the other women who've had voices related to Emmanuel Church in the past. Our committee is going into its third year. We've been studying throughout. We've been trying to do networking, visiting at historically black churches where we've been welcomed. We continue to do that. We've had small conversations with many of our parishioners. In the past year, the vestry took up reparations, formally devised a definition of reparations at a vestry retreat and a mission statement, and then we followed that up with a parish meeting to which everyone was invited to give their ideas and start to have a bigger parish-wide conversation. Our next step, we hope, is that we will earmark some funds, probably already in our budget, rename them, put them in a different item line, probably in our budget, and work to build some sort of financial aspect, which, while we know will never be complete, it will certainly put more of us and more of our resources and more of our love into the reparations movement. So that's where we've been.
Thank you all. My next question is, what has been a source of energy or momentum in your reparations work, or what has been a challenge or barrier within that in your parish? And can you speak to the spiritual components of reparations within that?
Well, I think for me and for St. Michael's, the source of energy has been, and we're not very, I'm doing the number one discussion of planting the seeds, because we're just getting the seeds from the store. We haven't even planted much. Thanks for the seeds today, by the way. I think it's the epiphanies and the discoveries that parishioners have when the light goes on, like what the discoveries that happened when my lights went on, and they're still going on. But that's a source of energy because it showed the great possibility with these sort of blinking constellations that I think will coalesce into a supernova at some point. And I think also a source of energy has been the willingness of the congregation to try on new things. I can pretty much do anything, and no one is going to sort of throw a tomato at me. And we don't throw tomatoes at all at each other. So maybe we need to sort of be a little bit more daring, because we have great opportunity on each other to take chances. And St. Michael's has been very generous in helping all of us take chances with guest speakers, with adult ed forums, with different things that we throw out. Like I said earlier, how do we get this to coalesce into something that has actual substance and weight and heft to move forward?
So for us, I think as I said, the Captain Jackson situation was sort of a motivator for moving in a new direction. Something that has helped, that helped us a lot, and I mean the momentum maybe isn't as strong now, but a couple of years ago we began a sharing Sacred Ground program with Christ Church in Cambridge. So we did it together. We had two groups, so kind of equally split, half Old North people and half Christ Church people meeting at two separate times. And so that 11-month, year-long process of meeting together, not only within our own community, but then with Christ Church, As they're they are going through their own process of discovery of history, was really profound, I think, for all of us in learning and growing together, in confronting our own history and our sort of national history, but our own personal history as well. So to make real what this work is all about. So that has been a fantastic experience for us.
I think that in terms of a source of energy, insight, or momentum, our group has really been fueled by curiosity. I think it's the most open approach to try to learn about our own history and to sort of integrate that into the thinking of what we can do in the future. The other aspect of Emmanuel Church you may know is that we have Emmanuel music. And we have Bach cantatas during the academic year, every week. We have a lot of gifts that Emmanuel Music has given us. But recently, in 2021, they began programming a lot more aggressively both people of color and women and people from other parts of the world. So we've gone way beyond Bach, especially since 2021, imagine that. And the latest composer who came in person from Britain, she was born in Belize, was Erilyn Wallen. I don't know if you know her, she's worked in many, many modes and types of music. Her opera was performed at MIT about a month ago. And it was just a joy to have her amongst us and sharing the concerts and the rehearsals. So she was a great source of inspiration to all of us. Now, in terms of a challenge or an issue that has posed maybe slower progress, I really think that we have to have a mindset that this is, and people have said it all day today, a very, very long process. Each one of us has to decide what we can do in our lifetime to move this forward, but also to bring along other folks. So we have some new folks at Emmanuel who are under 40, and we've invited one to be on our committee right now. She has a background in social work, so it'll be wonderful to have her in our group. Again, these are all very small steps, but we have a synagogue in residence at Emmanuel, Boston, and so I'll hark back to the Talmudic saying, "You are now obliged to complete the work, but neither are you free to abandon it."
Thank you for that. And last of all, what advice would you have for individuals, but especially for parishes that are looking to either begin or deepen their work around reparations?
I think that the biggest, there's just a few things that I'll say. One is to know your parish or get to know your parish and focus on what's of interest and inspiring to each person. Build on your strengths, you all have them. Network with others, both in your community, within the church, within interfaith organizations, other places. And of course, take courses. We've done Sacred Ground, but Stone Beam has been mentioned today. It's a wonderful course as well. There are many, many ways to plug into the videos and things that are being offered by the family here at Christ Church, your family of descendants. And then, when you are speaking with people, listen very, very carefully and pose questions to people that will deepen both of your understandings. I think that our understanding of an issue and keep going back to it. More open you can be and the less judgmental you can be, or try to be. I think that benefits us. And the other thing is to share the stories that you have, personal, community, from your past, from your children, any kinds of stories that will enliven the discussions and the work and the planning that you will do.
Well, I'm probably the one who needs the most advice. Not advice, but I think what James Hairston said about meeting people where they are is really critical. I think for primarily white congregations and communities, there can be a resistance, a sense of hopelessness, or a sense of helplessness, or a sense of guilt, or senses of all sorts of things that need to be owned and stated and said and put on the table. So those things can be looked at and addressed, because it can be very easy for, at least in my observation, for white communities to sort of just say, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do this activity and feel like I've done something, and I'm going to feel good about it. And I think that's important, but that's only the first step in the process of transformation. So I found some, there's a lot of really good material out there. So for folks to kind of begin to learn, and I think telling stories. A thought came to me while I was listening. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, in a mostly white community. I didn't think about anybody other than myself in my community. And then I got married to a woman who's Palestinian. And I still didn't really think much about it until I said some things that kind of upset her. And she said, listen, you need to understand something. I didn't have eyes at that point. I still don't have eyes, but my eyes are opening slowly, and it's ghastly and it's dizzying, but it's also so critical and important. So you don't know who's out there that doesn't have eyes open yet, and if they can tell their story, they may actually discover something that they didn't realize about their own obstacles, or their own sufferings, or their own possibilities.
I don't know that I actually have a whole lot to add after the two incredible testimonies we've heard, but when we were having some conversations in Old North back a few years ago, sort of moving more in this direction, one of our vestry members was quite concerned that we might start taking plaques off the walls, right, and change who we were and that. And I said to him, I'm not actually interested in taking plaques off the walls. What I want to do is I want to enhance the story. I want to expand how we understand who we are. And as I shared, I'm able to use a plaque that I perceive as racist in a way to tell a story by the plaque being there. The plaque is actually really helpful in a way for us to tell our story. And so I think actually hearing from people about what their fears are is really important to get started as well, because I think people are all over the map in terms of where they're at. And so if people can articulate what their fear is, it actually helps, I think, to move beyond it and helps us to understand so that we can move forward in a positive way. And so I agree with everything we've already heard, and I would add that as well. Thank you.
Well, thanks to all of you for sharing the specifics of where you're at in your particular journey with your parish. And we know if we have this conversation 3-5 years from now, you'll be at different places in that journey. I just want to take a moment to note that while our focus today is on acts of reparation through the Episcopal Church and particular parishes, Reparations is largely a movement about getting the government to acknowledge the history of enslavement and pay for reparations. And so on the national level, we have HR 40 as a bill that has a long history and an effort to acknowledge and make actual payments to atone for the history of slavery in this country. And here in Massachusetts, we have Senator Liz Miranda's bill, which is S1181, an act establishing a commission to study reparations in Massachusetts. And so there is an effort within the state of Massachusetts to take action around reparations, and I encourage people to look more into that bill and to get involved in advocacy at that level, in addition to what they're doing inside their own churches.
Thank you, Amir. One more time for our panel,